Hi, everyone, and welcome to our group's debate project for SPCE 619. My name is Rachel McManaman. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I will be the introducer for our group as a whole, introducing both the empowerment and care sides of the debate. The other members of our team include Nikki Powell from Huntington, West Virginia, who will be the summarizer for both sides of the debate, Amy Brown from Dayton, Ohio, who will be presenting the research for the empowerment side, Brooke Plummer from South Point, Ohio, who will be presenting supporting research for the care side of the debate, Jamie Barr from Columbus, Ohio, who will be providing illustrations and supporting explanations for both sides of the debate, and Elizabeth Smith, I didn't get where you were from, who will facilitate the arguments by asking fielder questions. The entire group will then end the debate by opening up to questions. Our topic for our debate is service delivery for transition age youth and adults, empowerment versus care. While many feel that youth and adults with autism spectrum disorder should be empowered to live their lives with the most independence possible, providers of post-secondary adult services have many concerns related to how much independence they are able to grant these individuals due to safety and liability issues, costs, and resources. We're going to start by looking at the legal, ethical, and research-based reasons that individuals with ASD should be empowered to have more choice when it comes to their post-secondary employment and other options, which Nikki will discuss in more detail. Elizabeth will ask any questions that may help give us a more rounded look at the topic at hand, and Amy and Jamie will provide research and visuals to enhance our understanding. So with that, I will give it over to Nikki.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to go over empowerment. Empowerment of individuals with ASD promotes independence, self-efficacy, self-advocacy, and community integration. For individuals living with an intellectual disability, making choices in day-to-day activities in life, such as where to live, who to live with, and how to spend time in the community, can be challenging. Regardless of how the person with a disability functions, the power to choose and make decisions is often guided and directed by family members or professionals. Being person-centered is about empowering individuals to make their own choices for the future. If you have no disability, you might not have given much thought to the financial, psychological, and emotional ramifications of not being able to do things independently. You may not be aware of the painful discrimination in all areas of life that persons with disabilities live with daily. These discriminations send a message to persons with disabilities that they are not worthy, which is why empowerment is so important. We never want a person with a disability to feel less than. According to the BACBA Code 2.09, it is the responsibility of the behavior analyst to advocate for the appropriate amount and level of service provision and oversight required to meet the defined behavior change program goals. Care that is not warranted should not be sought out. Individuals have a right to make their own decisions if they are capable of doing so.
I have a feeling it's my turn, but my screen's frozen.
I can read the question if you want.
Okay. It's like stuck right under it right now.
What is being done to ensure that individuals with ASD are actively involved in the transition process?
Whitmer and colleagues have brought up a good point about the Individuals with Disability Act, or IDA. Individuals attend their IEP meetings and help in the planning process at the age of 16. This empowers the individual and allows for self-advocacy. It's also a great skill to have to be able to communicate what you want and need, or even what you don't want. It's giving individuals a voice to speak on for their own behalf and are actively being involved. Hanger and colleagues also looked up the family-based planning that provided support to find available resources to help prepare the individual as well. Using a family-based or even a client-centered program helps the individual have a true say, or as much as it can be, in the outcomes of their own life.
What contributes to success for individuals with ASD being not only successful, but also being satisfied with their life?
With this question, we're going to look at the research from Hanger and colleagues discussing the correlation between self-advocacy and work-related outcomes.
And then Jamie, I think that's you after that.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm going to share a visual for the empowerment side. So this figure I have here represents employable outcomes for individuals with ASD linked with services through the IDD state agencies. Table 1 includes level of intelligence, demographics such as race, ethnicity, gender, overall health rating, and individuals' level of mobility. Based on the findings from this study, only 14% of males with an ASD diagnosis were employed and 6.6% for females. Interestingly, even the individuals rated with excellent or very good health only consisted of 14.3% employment. The data appears to be significant due to a p-value less than 0.5.
Oh, and that's back to me. Okay. All right, I will summarize the points that have been made so far. I'm going to have to read over that and kind of write something up. So we will now hear about transition from the perspective of the care side or service providers. Nikki will summarize the concerns of the care and service providers. Elizabeth will ask questions regarding what is ethical in providing these services. And Brooke and Jamie will provide research and illustrations to further support this information, and we will wrap up with closing questions and statements.
As service providers and those caring for individuals with ASD, we also want to promote independence and autonomy. However, it is important that the treatment is still ethical and appropriate. Providers of post-secondary adult services are very important to the IDD population, including persons with ASD. It is the job of the provider to ensure that each individual reaches their full human potential, which may not be the same potential of one of their peers. Providers are to empower individuals to make good choices with the provider's assistance to ensure safety, not just safety from bodily harm, but safety from exploitation and coercion. Having a provider available to a person with ASD provides a safety net for those individuals to ensure that they are not alone in this world, left to fend for themselves, while attempting to reach short and long-term goals with assistance. According to the BACB Code of Ethics 2.0, the behavior analyst's responsibility to the client states, behavior analysts have a responsibility to operate in the best interests of the clients. The term client here is used broadly to whomever behavior analysts provide services, whether an individual person, a parent, guardian, an organizational representative, public or private organization, firm, or corporation. This section of the code recognizes a provider as a person that may make decisions for a person with a disability.
Our clients have a right to effective treatment, but how do we ensure autonomy while also making sure the treatment is effective and builds on the client's existing skill set?
Behavioral health providers are obligated to ensure that all clients served are provided treatment that is individualized and effective. They must not only do this from a moral standpoint, but also because there are rules and regulations that govern all providers, which dictate the standards that must be met when implementing said services and allow the provider to have a license. For example, I have worked for 17 years in this field, and 15 of those years was in the state of West Virginia. The ICF regulations have tag numbers that address each area of services provided. Tag W196 falls under the active treatment standard and states, each client must receive a continuous active treatment program, which includes aggressive, consistent implementation of a program of specialized and generic training, treatment, health services, and related services described in this subpart that is directed toward the acquisition of the behaviors necessary for the client to function with as much self-determination and independence as possible, and the prevention or deceleration of regression or loss of current optimal functional status. There is also a governing body tag, W104, that addresses all members of management within the provider as being accountable to ensure all individual tag areas are addressed. If a provider does not comply with these regulations, as well as other regulations from other states, they are cited using these tag numbers and must do what is known as a plan of correction to resolve the issues. Given too many tags or citations can lead to a provider facility being shut down by the state. The philosophy is that the client's needs must come first, therefore not providing effective treatment can be grounds for loss of licensure.
The BACB's Professional and Ethical Compliance Code Section 4.02 discusses the importance of involving clients in the planning process. How is this similar or different to IDEA's mandating client participation at the age of 16? How do we balance client participation and effective treatment?
The difference between involving the client in the planning process versus IDEA mandating client participation is that mandating means the client has to be present and accounted for during the planning process, whereas client involvement requires that the team of professionals working with the client actually make the client responsible for the activities, living arrangements, programming, recreational events, etc., that he or she will be participating in. It requires that the team discuss the wants, needs, and desires of the client with the client directly, and then value his or her input, and ultimately means that the client will direct his or her own service plans. When it comes to balancing client participation and effective treatment, if the client is directly involved in their treatment plan with the guidance of their team of professionals, then participation will be a given. If the client is making choices and the provider's team of professionals are guiding the choices to the most appropriate treatment implementation options, the balance should be built in as long as ongoing evaluation of treatment plans takes place by the provider and professionals.
Regarding transitional care, this figure represents 18 service models for children with complex health needs, including autism, diabetes, and cerebral palsy. Table 1 summarizes components from normalization process theory. In this case, this would reflect how individuals interact in their work environment. The components within this figure are coherence, what is the work, cognitive participation, who does the work, collective action, how does the work get done, reflexive monitoring, how is the work understood, in accordance to implementing transition services. The shaded boxes in this figure include different transition categories used.
Okay, and we will then make some closing remarks about our debate, which I will probably come up with. And now we're going to address some additional questions that were directed to us from Dr. Bassett. The first question is, what is the ethical responsibility of BCBAs in terms of assisting clients transitioning between settings? So this would be assisting clients that may be transitioning from a secondary school setting to some type of post-secondary employment or schooling or other programming. The main ethical responsibilities that I found and have outlined mainly fall within Section 2 of the BACB ethical guidelines, which is basically our responsibility to the client. These include that the main responsibility of the BCBA should be to the client, especially when working with any third parties. And in this case, there would be schools, day programs, maybe job coaches, employers, etc. The BCBA should always provide appropriate consultation and referrals based on the needs of the client. And in this case, it may be a job coach if they're looking for employment, a counselor if they're looking to attend post-secondary school. The BCBA should also always support the client's rights and advocate for these rights within all settings, and ensure that the clients have the most effective treatment available to them. And as BCBAs, we should be basing our interventions and recommendations on the most up-to-date research, and communicating this to other professionals that may be working with the client. We also want to involve the client in the planning process as much as possible, and in the transition process when this can involve a lot of other people and professionals, the families. We want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that our clients' voices being heard as far as what their wants and needs are. Who has the second question? Oh, go ahead,
me.
sorry.
You're fine. The second question was, how can behavior analysts help ensure empowerment is occurring for clients? To examine this question, I looked at Code 4.02, which talks about involving our clients in planning and consent. So we want to ensure that our clients know what's going on and agree to what's going on. Having clients involved in the process also relates to success in treatment plans. Code 4.09 also discusses least restrictive environment, which is also important to look at. Treatment plan that is not making progress but not altering it can also be considered a least restrictive environment. So we want to ensure our clients are able to be successful with the current treatment plan that's implemented. And we want to promote autonomy before all else.
Okay, and our last question, which everyone from the group will respond to, is do you have any personal experiences related to this topic you would like to share? And I think Nikki has gone first.
I'll start here. I've worked in the field of IDD for over 10 years. I currently work for one of the largest behavioral health agencies in the nation as a program manager. I've managed a facility-based day program, ICF residential homes, natural family settings, and Title 19 waiver funded in a residential setting. Empowerment versus care is an age-old question. Of course, from a provider standpoint, I struggle with empowerment versus safety. I want my clients to be empowered to make their own decisions and to have as much endpoint as possible in their life, but all the while ensuring their safety and ensuring they are not exploited or taken advantage of. But from experience, that sometimes comes with coddling or treating them as if we would our own children, because we want to ensure their safety, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional well-being.
My personal experience with this topic comes from working as a case manager in the community mental health setting for about 4 years, mainly with adults with developmental disabilities, many of which who are searching for employment or, trying to find something meaningful to participate in during their day-to-day life. During my experience, many of my adult clients struggled with this issue of empowerment. They voiced very strong desires to get jobs or do things in the community, and then they're being told that they couldn't, either due to a lack of programming or funding, safety issues. Like Nikki said, it's really hard as a provider. You want to empower your client, but at the same time, you also want to make sure they're safe, that they're not taken advantage of, and that they're, functioning at their optimal level. And as a case manager, you want to advocate and empower your clients as much as possible. Another barrier seemed to be a lot of the time the source of the funding, in this case Medicaid, was not adequate enough to meet the needs of the clients or presented a lot of red tape when trying to achieve something for them. So I think this topic is really important.
I have unfortunately not have had as much experience on this topic. I mainly work with children that are about 7 to 11 years old in a modified classroom focusing on the ABA therapy. But for the past year and a half, I've been working with a home client that's 19 years old. So I chose this topic because I wanted to go ahead and learn more about this transitional period that he's going to be going through, and that will be helping him to get to that point. So I want to be able to advocate for him and leave him with skills that will empower him through his adulthood. I want him to be able to work and be as independent as possible. And I think it's a personal right to be able to do his part in society. With the right help, I fully believe that he can do this.
Okay, and for Brooke, my personal experience with this topic is very extensive in that I have been dealing with this dilemma in one manner or another for 17 years now. As a direct care staff, case manager, QMRP, and clinical supervisor, my role has always been to encourage the client and advocate for the client to ensure that their voice was heard and the desires of the client were taken into account before any decision was made. However, once I started working on the administrative side within the provider as residential director and assistant executive director, I was faced with dealing with the other side of the decisions that were made. If a client made a decision that ended poorly or made one that was not in his or her best interest, I would often have to deal with outside community members, police officers, EMS workers, hospital staff, physicians, and the state surveyors who grant us our licensure to operate. I can see arguments for both sides of this debate and know that in reality, many of the decisions the people we serve make require some type of guidance from us as professionals. The level of true informed consent is not 100% in any case. If it were, we would not be providing services.
My personal experience relating to this topic comes from working as a case manager at an outpatient community mental health center, very similar to Rachel's. The clients I worked with were adults and some children with developmental disabilities. I would see clients in the office once per month and communicate with direct care staff or house manager during the appointment. A challenge I faced in this job was feeling like I could not do enough for the client, which hinders my responsibility to the client. Of course, I would want to advocate for the client to be independent and participate in community outings, although at times I felt there was not much guidance from staff members. A lot of the time I would get responses such as, "Everything is fine," or "Nothing has changed." Everyone should be able to have the right to work and express their talents and abilities. On a positive note, some of the adult clients I worked with, a part of DayHab programs, were able to engage in details of their line of work and what they liked or disliked about their job.
I was introduced to the field of ABA as a student intern in a transition age classroom in a public school. The students in the classroom were all in vocational placements, and some had strong opinions about what they wanted to help with, while others did not have the communication to actively voice their opinions. Those students that were not as active in this discussion were still taught basic life skills as opposed to focusing on the vocational programs. The students who took an active role in the discussion showed a great deal of pride in their work and really enjoyed it. Those who were not actively involved had a lot of programs relating to their ability to communicate more effectively, with the end goal being that they are able to participate in that discussion.
All right, so that concludes our debate for service delivery with transition age youth and adults, empowerment versus care. We hope you enjoyed it, and the end. I'll come up with something more eloquent.